Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello, this is Matt Truman. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Today on the podcast, it's April 13th, 2022. And without further ado, we're going to go straight to a clip from NBC New York.
Let's get you caught up on the latest. Brooklyn subway riders bound for Manhattan were shot on an N train at the 36th Street and 4th Avenue stop in Sunset Park. Police say the suspect, wearing a gas mask and a construction vest, tossed a smoke canister in the car before opening fire. Subway riders ran from the train in a panic. And then when that smoke cleared, we learned at least 29 people were hurt. 10 of them were shot. The other victims were either hurt in the panic to escape or they breathed in just too much smoke, Chuck.
Well, right now, that man behind the attack is still on the run. This situation is not considered terrorism at this time. The police are focusing on a van that was possibly used by the suspect, also found in Brooklyn, as you can see here live from Chopper 4. In addition, a weapon, fireworks, smoke bombs, gasoline found at the scene of the crime. As the evening rush gets underway, there are delays for most of the day. Service from Manhattan to Brooklyn was suspended on the lines impacted by the investigation. Now, we have team coverage on the search for the suspect and the wounded, but we start tonight with News 4's Miles Miller live in Sunset Park. Miles?
Chuck, as you said, this is still an active crime scene here. We're at 36th and 4th Avenue in busy Sunset Park. Still, this is a crime scene hours after this all happened this morning. Another crime scene happening right now in Gravesend, Brooklyn, as police and the bomb squad race to figure out if that U-Haul van there is connected to what happened here. Tonight, officials realizing the horror on the N train could have been much worse. Police sources telling News 4 the suspect's gun jammed, preventing more people from being shot. The frightening moments started just after 8 in Sunset Park.
As a Manhattan-bound N train waited to enter the 36th Street station, an individual on that train donned what appeared to be a gas mask. He then took a canister out of his bag and opened it. The train at that time began to fill with smoke. He then opened fire, striking multiple people on the subway.
Panicked passengers rushed off the train.
I was coming out the train and I saw a lot of smoke and I smelled it. It was a really strong smell.
And all hell broke loose. The police commissioner saying the suspect wore a green vest and gas mask. He escaped, but wasn't caught on surveillance cameras in the subway because they've been broken since Friday.
We say no more. No more mass shootings. No more disrupting lives. No more creating heartbreak for people.
Police recovering the gun used at the scene, as well as a bag of fireworks and smoke canisters. Sources say gasoline was poured into spray bottles. As city and federal law enforcement search for New York's most wanted man, they say a U-Haul van with Arizona plates is believed to be connected with the shooting, urging any officers that see it to approach with caution. 9 hours later, and members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force just exited this subway station, still searching for clues down on the platform level as the search for New York's most wanted man continues. In Sunset Park, Brooklyn, I'm Miles Miller, News 4 New York. Chuck?
Now to the massive citywide manhunt that's underway right now. The suspect has been hiding from police for most of the day. As you saw, a weapon, a bag of fireworks, and more smoke canisters were found at the scene here. And now investigators are focusing on that U-Haul that we mentioned a moment ago. News 4's Jonathan Dean is live with what's helping and hindering the investigators at this time. John?
Chuck, well, a big break coming as a result of that U-Haul van. We are told investigators have now identified the man who rented that U-Haul van. It is from the Philadelphia area, and that man has Pennsylvania ties. He actually has a past criminal record in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, and also in New York. And by using license plate reader technology and other information, they've determined that that van was driven from Pennsylvania to New York, through New Jersey to New York, yesterday into today, and that investigators believe that van may have been used by the suspect, who later went onto the subway with that bag of items to carry out this attack. All this suggests if the driver and the shooter are one and the same, which is what investigators are leaning towards at this time, if they are one and the same, this is a premeditated attack, and now they want to know why. Inside that bag of goods, again, was ammunition, fireworks, a hatchet, a spray bottle of gasoline, and again, numerous fireworks. In addition, the gun recovered at the scene, and that he had fired multiple times before the gun apparently jammed. So this obviously could have been much worse if that gun did not jam and if he was able to set fire to some of the items that he had inside his bag.
All right, folks. So there it is. They're not calling it a terrorist attack, but what do you call it? Crime? Yeah. What's the motive on this? Who knows? So the person of interest that they're not really talking about, some have, like Heavy.com has a report. I posted it over on Truman's Town Hall podcast Facebook page. They've named him Frank R. James. He's the guy they're talking about, has ties to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. He's 62 years old. They tied him to that U-Haul truck. There it is, folks. That's what happened today or yesterday in New York City in the subway system. Predominantly used by Asian and Hispanic folks. It's an Asian Hispanic neighborhood. Interesting because there's a lot of crime against Asian folks there, and it's not by white folks. I'll just say that. Not to get racial, but that's just how things are. I don't like to get racial here on, me. I love everybody no matter what. But it's very interesting. All this stuff is just, this story will be gone by the end of the week. Why do I say that? Because the Mishawaka story, if y'all remember, the Mishawaka, Wisconsin, where the black male drove his car into a bunch of old ladies and killed them. Now he's going through a trial and everything, and there's nothing. Had it been, I don't know, some FBI agents who talked a couple of rednecks into doing stuff, and then they called it an assassination, a kidnap and assassination plot against a Michigan governor, it would be all over the news. They would use it for everything, but it's not. Mark my words. They'll catch this guy, probably. And that'll be that. He'll go through trial, and they'll just bring it up and, oh, this guy was on trial today. Remember that? I watched a few videos, and there's a few videos posted over on Truman's Town Hall podcast Facebook page, and they're pretty gruesome. There's I posted some on there, but there's more gruesome. It looked like a lot of lower extremity wounds for whatever. I mean, the guy, they're saying he's 5'5", so okay, yeah, that makes sense. He's a short dude shooting and probably blindly just pointing a weapon, and then it jams up on him. Thank God, right? Thank God it jammed up on him. Divine intervention? Probably. New York's had enough to deal with. The people of New York. The mayor of New York's an idiot, right? Or, I'm sorry, the governor. I apologize. The mayor of New York, I don't think's an idiot. I just think he's a Democrat. I think he's a pretty smart dude, actually. But the new governor of New York, oh, by the way, did you hear the lieutenant governor got arrested in New York? Y'all hear about that?
Mr. Benjamin surrendered to law enforcement this morning.
From the halls of political power in Albany to his arraignment in a Manhattan federal courthouse.
Can you come to Albany right now? Can you do your job?
After mounting political pressure and calls for his resignation, tonight, Brian Benjamin has stepped down as New York Lieutenant Governor, just hours after his arrest and his indictment in an alleged bribery scheme.
This is a simple story of corruption.
Federal prosecutors say the former lieutenant governor made a corrupt deal with a real estate developer, and Benjamin directed a $50,000 state grant to the developer in exchange for tens of thousands of dollars in campaign donations.
Taxpayer money for campaign contributions. Quid pro quo. This for that. That's bribery, plain and simple.
Benjamin was under investigation by the FBI. According to the indictment, Benjamin engaged in a series of lies and deceptions to cover up the scheme, including falsifying campaign donor forms.
And we allege that Benjamin repeatedly lied on the vetting forms that he filled out before he was appointed lieutenant governor.
Last week, Governor Kathy Hochul maintained,
I have utmost confidence in my lieutenant governor.
And just 1 hour before the U.S. Attorney's Office announced Benjamin's arrest, Hochul was live in studio on the Pix 11 Morning News and made no mention of her running mate's legal troubles.
I have a record to run on, and New Yorkers are getting to know me even better.
Hochul and Benjamin were running together for a full term as governor and lieutenant governor. They faced several Democratic challengers in a June primary.
Our indictment levels serious charges against him, but any decision about whether he remains a candidate or not is up to him and other people.
Lots of issues for New Yorkers to deal with. So keep your prayers with New York. I pray with you, New York. I hope y'all, man, good night. That Democratic government in New York is atrocious. The cities aren't safe. The government is corrupt. And then today, just icing on the cake. Man, good night. I will continue to follow the story about the subway shooting. If I see updates, I'll post them on Truman's Town Hall Podcast Facebook page. That's how you find it, Truman's Town Hall Podcast. It's on Facebook. And then we'll update it here as we learn more. Let's talk a little bit about what happened earlier this week, last week. So out of Michigan, I mentioned that a little bit. There was a alleged plot to kidnap and possibly assassinate or whatever Governor Whitmer of Michigan. The case was thrown out, right? You didn't hear about that? I'm sure you heard all about the arrests and how these white supremacist militia members got together and were planning this big kidnapping scheme and everything. Let's listen to something from a news source called The First.
White supremacists and these militias are a genuine threat. I've got to compliment the FBI and the police agencies for what they did and how they stepped up. The president has to realize the words he utters matter. But the senator talked to Gretchen, to the governor earlier before I landed, and I talked to her. She's feeling secure and good, and I think that the FBI and others deserve a great deal of credit.
I did love that little tidbit in there. He talked to Gretchen, the governor. Good save, Joe. But setting that aside, man, that was a close call, wasn't it? Whew, they almost had her. I'm glad she's in good spirits, though. Yeah, except it was all a lie. We now have details out. 2 of the accused completely acquitted of everything. How could you possibly get acquitted of planning to kidnap and murder the governor of Michigan? Well, if it was all the FBI, that's how you get acquitted. You see, the FBI planned, funded, organized the entire thing, and we now know that it's all been exposed at trial, which, okay, this is one trial, not the end of the world, until you think about it long and hard and realize the federal law enforcement arm is now more than willing to frame people and send them to prison if it continues the regime's narrative about the dangers of white supremacy. Just how bad is it? Something we should probably figure out. Something we should probably ask Brian Dean Wright about. My friend Brian Dean Wright has something out now. It came out today, and I just love this thing. It's called The President's Daily Brief. Now, we've had Brian on the show. Obviously, you don't need me to introduce Brian to you, but you know what I love? I love easily consumable. I'm busy. I don't have 6 hours every day to consume all the news. You don't have 6 hours. I'm driving to work for 20 minutes. Get me caught up. That's what this is. concise, smart, gets me caught up. I listened to today's on the way to the studio right before I got here. Good. Now I'm caught up on things. Brian, before we get to the president's daily brief, which we will get to, I consider it to be the most dangerous situation in the country today, the fact that our own government has decided half the country is the enemy. That historically does not end very well at all.
Well, let's acknowledge and remember something very, very important right now that isn't part of this white supremacy conversation. And then let's talk about Michigan. Right now, Joe Biden, you and I, via our taxpayer dollars, are supporting in Ukraine an entity called Azov Battalion. About 10,000 people, all of which are neo-Nazis. Yes, that is true. It is happening. So Joe Biden in Ukraine is funding white supremacy, neo-Nazis. At the same time, he's telling us that, in fact, white supremacy is the nation's greatest problem. So, to put it in different context, we're going to fund al-Qaeda, but then al-Qaeda is a serious problem here in the United States. No, of course, it's absurd, doesn't make any sense. And that's because white supremacy isn't a great problem in this country. The data is very clear on that. In fact, there was a recent study by the Department of Defense, over millions and millions of different active duty service members, less than 100 cases of extremism documented. So that's bad, but it's not an existential problem like Biden is saying. So that then, knowing that's the context, I think you're absolutely right. So why are they doing it? It's a political calculus, right? This Michigan case to me is really, really shocking. I don't know if you saw this, and I was like, this has Jesse written all over it. These dudes, the Wolverine brothers, they were sitting around getting drunk as skunks, smoking tons of weed, and they were talking about guns and libertarian ideas, and then they started popping off about, well, that Gretchen girl, she needs it, doesn't she? So these guys were not actually planning anything that had genuine intent until, as you said, the FBI said, hey, here's the plan. Here's the money to do it all. Go ahead, boys, get her done. Never mind that the informant who was involved was like, yeah, these guys are just wasting our time. You know, the FBI was like, no, push it, go, make it happen. You and I, through our taxpayer dollars and the FBI, are inciting people who otherwise wouldn't engage in lawlessness to actually engage in lawlessness. That is so wrong. That is un-American. And we should damn straight be asking our government to strip those powers from the FBI because it is not what this country should do. It is not what this country should be.
Brian, let me ask you something, and I really just genuinely am curious. I don't remember the last time somebody from the federal government, be it a sitting politician, someone at the FBI, DOJ, honestly, someone in the military, I don't remember the last time somebody high up in the federal government got arrested, charged with a crime, and sent to federal prison. I consider that to be a big problem. No, I don't want to live in a country where we're rounding up our political opponents and throwing them in jail. But if nobody is ever getting arrested at the highest levels of our government, that tells me there's no accountability at all. That sounds like what the FBI did is a crime. That doesn't sound like, oh, the case should be dismissed. Someone should be arrested for that.
Yes, look, we have seen for years now people engaged in what most reasonable people would say was lawlessness, illegality, was just wrong. I mean, James Comey took classified information, gave it to the New York Times so they would publish it, and that would force a public firestorm that would then lead to a special counsel. Okay, that's exactly what happened. You know, James Comey, the head of the FBI, could have taken all of his notes and given it to Congress and said, hey, look, I think there's a problem. Trump, you guys investigate it. It's a political matter, not a law enforcement matter. My politics, whether or not I like Trump, that's irrelevant. You guys addressed it. That's what Comey should have done. He didn't. He broke the law, not held to account. So if you can go from the head of the FBI, who is doing this ridiculous, unlawful, un-American stuff, what do you think the rank and file of the FBI is going to do? What kind of signal does that send? It says, look, if you have personal interests, personal politics, go ahead and use those. If you want to whip each other into hysteria here within the FBI headquarters and decide you want to target certain people, go ahead. There's not going to be any accountability for that. I mean, that's the message that the past 5 to 10 years has sent. And it should be ringing an alarm bell across this country saying that we've got to get a handle on these people because they're out of control.
There it is. There's a little discussion about what happened. cases are dropped. We could go, for days talking about how many times the FBI has manipulated someone into committing a crime and then they get sent to jail. But we're not. We got to talk a little bit about Ukraine and Russia. And in that previous piece, they mentioned the Azov Brigade. I currently sit restricted on Facebook. So my channel's pretty much shadow banned. I can't go live. I can't invite people to like the page. It's nuts. My first time in Facebook jail, actually. Why did I go to Facebook jail? Because I posted a picture of members of the Azov Brigade holding a Ukrainian flag with the swastika in it. That is why I'm in Facebook jail. It exists, folks. You know why it doesn't exist in most of the Silicon Valley and mainstream media? Because it doesn't fit their narrative to go to war with Russia by helping Ukraine. That's our way into going to war with Russia, to knocking them out and controlling the world. New World Order. Oh, we'll talk about that later too. I'm not going to play the whole clip, but I'm going to play like the beginning of it. Vice News, like 7 years ago, did a report about the Azov Brigade. There's a lot of reports from years ago about Azov being neo-Nazi members of the Ukrainian army, but it doesn't exist, right?
We're at the Ukrainian Azov Battalion. It's one of the ultra-nationalist volunteer battalions that are now part of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. They're training up new recruits here today, and today is an important day for the new recruits because earlier today, President Poroshenko of Ukraine announced that there was a ceasefire, that he'd agreed with Russia. We want to find out what the members of this battalion think about the ceasefire because, for one thing, Russia's already said that it hasn't agreed to one because it's not part of the conflict, or so it claims, and the separatist forces have said they haven't made any agreements with Ukraine either. So it's not clear whether this is an actual ceasefire or whether these men are going to have to go.
All right, I'll post that video in the description of this podcast. Ultra Nationalist Battalion. What's that? What is that? I'll post this clip too. Why not? It's BBC Newsnight.
The protesters are back, but in place of ordinary citizens, now they're battle-hardened fighters. They're the same slogans as last year. Ukraine above all else. Glory, glory, glory. But in the mouths of the right sector, they take on a more sinister aspect. Well, there can be few more poignant depictions of how unfinished Ukraine's revolution is than this sight. All of these people bearing the banners of the far-right group, these people who helped overthrow Ukraine's pro-Russian president a year and a half ago. And they've been telling me that they want to bring down this president as well. Glory to Ukraine, they shout. The banner of the right sector harks back to a Ukrainian nationalist movement from the 1940s. They say the colours represent the blood of Ukrainians spilt upon their country's black soil. Their critics call them fascists and neo-Nazis.
We all love our country. If we love our country, we are neo-Nazis or not? I think not. So I mean that we are nationalists. Revolution wasn't finished. That's why the people who don't love Ukraine came to control Ukraine. For me, it's not normal.
On a summer afternoon.
All right, I'll post that video, and you guys can watch it if you want to. And there's a ton of them out there. Far right, I don't know. I get called far right too, so maybe they're not. I don't know. right? Maybe they're not neo-Nazis. Maybe they don't believe in Hitler. It's just, when you see, that Nazi swastika on the Ukrainian flag, you kind of wonder. When you see pictures like with Ukrainian soldiers speaking to journalists with patches on their Kevlar that says SS Galician. What's SS Galician? If folks don't know history, that's the 1st Division of the Ukrainian National Army, and it surrendered to the Western Allies May 10th, 1945. So they have resurrected that. It was the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS. And if you know history, the SS was Nazi Germany. So, you make what you want out of any of this. But that's what it is. These are facts, folks. These are just facts. You have the Azov Battalion, the right sector. There's a lot of history on what those folks are doing. And we're supporting them, by the way, the United States. We talk about Black Lives Matter, and then we support white supremacists in Ukraine. Super interesting, right? Super interesting how all this works. We supported the Mujahideen. They ended up killing us. Oh, remember 9/11? Yeah, it was done by Saudis, but who was it ran by? It was ran by a Muj. Anyway, all right. Let's move on. Let's get off this topic. I think if you did a historical deep dive into Ukraine, you would see that Nazi Germany had a very influential standing in Ukraine, and it lasts till today. But that's just me. Check it out for yourself. All right, let's stop busting Ukraine's chops for a minute, and let's talk about stories coming out of Russia, right? Some evil crap from BBC News.
Well, with Russian troops retreating from areas around the capital that they used to control, Ukrainian forces are moving in and are uncovering more and more stories of violence used against the local women. In particular, of soldiers using rape as a weapon of war. Our correspondent Nikita Lamai has been speaking to some of those affected, and you may find some of the vivid descriptions of abuse in her report upsetting.
A quiet rural neighborhood shattered by barbaric violence. In a village west of Kyiv, a first-hand account of rape by invading soldiers. When we started talking to this woman, we didn't know what we were about to hear. We are hiding her identity to protect her.
A soldier entered our house. My husband and I were there. At gunpoint, he took me to a neighboring house. He was ordering me, take your clothes off or I'll shoot you. Then he started raping me. While he was doing that, 4 more soldiers entered. I thought I was done for, but they took him away.
She returned home to find her husband shot in the abdomen. He died 2 days later. She buried him in the backyard.
I found drugs and Viagra that they left behind. They would get high and they were drunk. Most of the invading soldiers are killers, rapists and looters. Only a few are okay. I want to ask Putin, why is this happening? I don't understand. We're not living in the Stone Age.
Just up the road, we heard of another rape case. It's being investigated by the police. This is the house a woman was taken to and assaulted. Upstairs, the bedroom where she was later killed. It's a disturbing scene. On the mirror, a message in lipstick. Tortured by unknown people, buried by Russian soldiers, it says. Out in the garden, we were shown her grave. A day after we went, Ukrainian police exhumed her body. The note, we're told, was left by a separate unit of Russians who found her body and buried her here. They later told a neighbor, Oksana Smolenska, about the dead woman.
They told me she had been raped and that her throat was either slit or stabbed and she bled to death. They said there was a lot of blood.
We traveled 70 miles east to another village. To what used to be the home of a family. A couple in their 30s and their young child. Signs of their peaceful, ordinary life lie amidst the ruins. On the 9th of March, Russian tanks rolled in. 2 soldiers shot the man dead. The woman who lived in this house managed to escape along with her child. She called the Ukrainian police and she's given them her testimony. She's told them she was raped multiple times by the 2 drunk Russian soldiers who killed her husband. And she said they threatened to kill her little boy too if she didn't do exactly as they said. As the soldiers left, they burned down the house. The police chief has told us they've gathered evidence and plan to go to the international court. In Kyiv, we met Ukraine's human rights ombudsman, Lyudmila Denisova, who's been recording rape cases.
About 25 girls and women aged 14 to 24 were raped during the occupation in the basement of one house in Bucha. 9 of them are pregnant. A 25-year-old woman called to tell us her 16-year-old sister was raped in the street in front of her. To calculate the number of such sexual crimes is impossible at the moment because not everyone has come to us. Not everyone is willing to talk to us.
Among the people we met, there's no relief that the Russians have gone.
Good Lord. I know that's probably tough for a lot of folks to listen to. It is for me. And war's hell. What else can you say? There are really no words to express what war is and what some folks who go to war do. The atrocities. Let me tell you something. Those Russian soldiers who rape those little girls need to be hung from the highest tree in the land. And I'm not a death penalty advocate, but when you're messing with kids, I would personally give up my salvation and chop your head off. I tell you what, kids are the most vulnerable folks. We need to protect children. But this war, and war in general, it doesn't protect children. It doesn't protect anyone. It's brutal. And for what? This war didn't have to happen. There's a lot of folks involved in it. The United States could have done something about this. We could have said, look, Ukraine's not going to be a part of NATO. We could have talked to Putin. Putin didn't have to invade, right? I freaking hate war, man. And I've been there. I guess if you've been there, you kind of understand a little bit. War sucks. It's stupid, man. Totally dumb. And we're going to continue to get into it. Folks, I believe right now, sitting here, that the United States is going to get into it. We're going to spark. We have entered World War III. That's my feeling on this. Because of stories like this, stories of chemical weapons being used, and other atrocities, I believe this. I believe those women. I really do. Because I know evil people. Right? The evil and the destruction. And in war, man, there's a lot of things you can get away with. A lot. Or at least for a while. Because we all have to answer to to God, right? In the end, whether you believe in the God I believe in, Jesus Christ and God, right? Or Muhammad, or you're Jewish, or you're Hindu, or whatever. We all have to answer to someone, something, some God, someday. Judgment is coming. It's going to rain down on us all. We can choose to be good, or we can choose to be evil. There's really no in between. Oh, it just pisses me off listening to those stories. It makes you, it really does. It makes you want to run over there and save those girls, save those kids, save those women from these evil bastards, man. Ooh. Oh, Lord. I can't stand people that prey on people weaker than them. I cannot stand people like that. All right, I'm going to change the subject before I get mad and want to crush the microphone that I'm looking at right now. Right? It's got to change subjects. I mean, it's doggone. It's horrible to think about this stuff. I'm going to play another clip. I'm going to go chill out for a minute. It's about a 9-minute. I don't know. It's about a 6-7 minute clip. Whatever. It's by Darren McBreen. Folks, the Hunter laptop's real. Oh, Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden. He had a laptop, right? You guys know about this. He had a laptop that he took to a place to get fixed. He, for whatever reason, didn't go pick up this laptop, and it's out there now, folks. It's out there, and it's real. And they told us it's Russian disinformation. So I have this clip that Darren McBreen put together, and I'm going to play it for you because I got to change subjects. Because if we talk about Russia and Ukraine anymore, my head's going to explode. Oh, Lord. It's very important. It really is. And I want everybody to pay attention. I wanted to get into the chemical weapons and how that's going to bring us into this war and how we're, just at the brink of war. Finland, right? Finland's trying to join NATO and Russia's moving. Oh, you didn't hear about this? We'll get to the McBreen clip here in a minute in the Hunter Biden laptop because it's important. But Russia is moving weapons, supposedly defensive weapons, over toward Finland because they share, proximity with Finland, Russia and Finland, right? So this might kick something off a little bit. I mean, there's all these little pockets of interesting that's popping up all over the place that's probably going to bring us into World War III. Now, the question is, are we going to just battle it out? Or are we going to launch nuclear weapons? I see nuclear weapons happening. Folks, we could be in the end times. Wow. Wouldn't that be amazing that we were chosen to live through the end times? That would be wild. I always thought that I was meant for something, right? I just don't know what it is yet. I haven't fulfilled the destiny. That's why I'm still alive. Maybe it's because I'm going to live through the end times. Yay! There it is. Anyway, I was going to talk about Finland and how Russia's bringing missile defense systems over close to Finland. Finland's going to join NATO. Look it up. I don't have a lot of time to be talking tonight, but I wanted to bring some things to you. So, yeah, that's happening. Let's listen to the Darren McBreen clip. Hunter Biden's laptop. Hunter's laptop from hell. That's what he titled this video. So let's look at it. Or, I'm sorry, man, I need to do a video, folks. When I get back caught up on live, I'm gonna bring some live videos, and we're gonna do this a little bit different too, right? We'll have live videos over on YouTube and Instagram, and we'll just put some videos out there and try to grow this podcast a little more. But, I mean, it's growing just with the audio. But if we could get more information out there, why not? All right, without further ado, Darren McBreen, Hunter's laptop from hell.
450 gigabytes of deleted material from Hunter Biden's laptop will soon be made available to the public in the form of an online searchable database. This will include 80,000 images and videos along with 120,000 archived emails. Now, they've recovered material off of Hunter Biden's hard drive that's never been seen before. In fact, it wasn't ever supposed to see the light of day. And if it wasn't for the courageous efforts of researcher and political activist Jack Maxey, we'd probably never know about the deviant, perverse, and criminal content forensic auditors have discovered on Hunter's laptop from hell.
We found 450 gigabytes of what Hunter thought was erased material. Now, some of it was duplicate, but amongst those things were 80,000 images and videos. And when my tech guy first started looking at them, it was very uncomfortable. Many of them were young girls, for some reason, sending pictures to Hunter with their tongues out. And I said, you got to stop. You have to stop. If he meant to erase these pictures, I was feeling there could be a high likelihood that there was something that no man or woman with a soul would want to see. And then I would be instantly obligated to go to the Swiss police. And I wanted to make sure before that eventuality had to come to pass that we had archived all the other material. Now, since then, we found thousands and thousands of PDFs we didn't know about. We believe that we've been able to scrape all the attachments. We keep finding more and more things. And so that became quite horrifying. And that's where we are, people.
Now, the Biden administration, the Justice Department, FBI, the Mockingbird media, they don't want anything to do with this laptop. And they're not just ignoring it. They are working together. They are collaborating to cover up all the evidence of the crimes. And remember, it wasn't too long ago, back during the run-up to the presidential election in 2020, they all said that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Remember that?
The information found on the laptop may be part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Part of a Russian disinformation effort.
Described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks. All the hallmarks, rather.
All the hallmarks of a Russian
disinformation.
Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation.
Just ask the fact checkers, right? And if anyone dared to question the official narrative of Hunter's laptop, well, they would find themselves censored or banned from social media. Account terminated. No free speech for you. So we're not supposed to talk about it. In fact, investigating this laptop, as you can probably imagine, has become very dangerous. Whistleblower Jack Maxey says he's had black suburban SUVs parked outside of his house. A former intelligence agency senior staffer allegedly told him that his life is in danger. And then when Maxey tried to post Hunter's emails and other material from the laptop on various file sharing sites, they were taken down almost as soon as they were uploaded. And that means that there are some very powerful people keeping a close eye on the internet to stop this information from getting out. And this is why Jack Maxey fled the United States to Switzerland. He says they are home to the only file sharing site that didn't nuke the laptop files. It's also the only place willing to do what the FBI should have done in the first place, but wouldn't. A forensic audit of the hard drive. And once they discovered there are inappropriate pictures, allegedly, of little girls on there, they got the police involved. Good. So finally, a criminal investigation into Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, granted, it's outside of the U.S., but hey, it's a start, right? And I tell you what, if you try to get this done inside the American justice system, it is almost impossible. Just ask Congressman Matt Gaetz.
I want to know where Hunter Biden's laptop is. Where is it?
Sir, I don't know that answer.
That is astonishing to me. Has FBI Cyber assessed whether or not Hunter Biden's laptop could be a point of vulnerability, allowing America's enemies to hurt our country?
Sir, the FBI Cyber program is based off of what's codified in Title 18, Title 18, Section 1030, a code which talks about computer intrusions, right, using nefarious intent.
But you've talked about passwords here. I mean, Hunter Biden's password on his laptop was Hunter02. He drops it off at a repair store. I'm holding the receipt from Max Computer Repair, where in December 2019, they turned over this laptop to the FBI. And what now you're telling me right here is that as the assistant director of FBI Cyber, you don't know where this is after it was turned over to you 3 years ago.
Yes, sir, that's an accurate statement.
Who should we put in that chair to ask questions about this laptop that FBI has had for 3 years?
Sir, I'm not in a position to make a recommendation who should say.
So you don't have it, you don't know who has it, you don't know where it is. Do you even know who has it? Do you know who we should put in that chair to ask these questions to?
No, sir, I don't know who has it.
I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm in possession of. I've never had.
I will object pending further investigation.
And here's what else they are saying is on Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. Dozens of images of trafficked women, hundreds of transactions between drug dealers and human traffickers, evidence of tax fraud and money laundering, and more evidence of Hunter's connection to U.S.-funded biolabs in the Ukraine. So I guess the good news is that all this information is finally getting out, but don't hold your breath because it might be a long time before we ever see any kind of justice, if ever. After all, these are the same individuals who have been and remain above the law, no matter how much evidence is stacked against them.
Okay, that was the report from Darren McBreen. This should be interesting. Will the information from Hunter Biden's laptop come out? Is the big guy really Joe Biden? We'll soon find out. Folks, we're living in a tumultuous time. We're living in a time of uncertainty and bewilderment. Folks like you and me, everyday folks, we don't understand all this. We try to make sense of it. It doesn't make sense. War doesn't make sense. Corruption doesn't make sense to us. We just want to live an honest life, do the right thing, treat people, treat our neighbors with love and kindness, help each other out, do the best we can, strive hard for our families, and make a life, right? But we can't nowadays. It's just so strange. We went through COVID and the lockdowns and the shutting down of the businesses. Now inflation. The March numbers came out. It's like 8.9% inflation. Food prices are going up. Be prepared for that. Prices on everything is going up. For once, I bought a house at the right time. It's crazy. All this stuff is nuts, folks. I hate to bring you all bad news, but we're living in bad times, aren't we? Don't you think? But we have things to be hopeful for, I think. We can work and help each other out. The more that we do good, better things will happen. If you and I together, if we do good things for our neighbors, for our family, for each other, we don't get angry at the person next to us because they cut us off. Okay, you cut me off in traffic. If we don't get angry at the McDonald's drive-thru because they forgot our Big Mac. If we, pet our dogs. I don't know, folks. We got to think of some things to be positive about. Love each other, do the right thing, and help one another. You see somebody stranded on the side of the road, stop, see what's up. Help push their car to the side of the road, figure out, hey, you got a cell phone? You got somebody on the way? Okay. We need to help people out, especially this time of year. It's Holy Week. And for folks who believe like me, believe that Jesus died for our sins and rose the third day, this is an important week. It really is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this podcast with a prayer. I'm going to end it with a prayer, folks. I love all y'all, and I appreciate you downloading this episode. I appreciate you sharing this episode if you do, and I hope you do. But I'm going to end this podcast with a prayer, and then we'll get out of here, and we'll come back maybe later on in the week, maybe next week. You know, life happens. Last week I didn't make it on the pod. There's just a lot of things going on in my life, but I still love to do these podcasts. I still love to get the information out there because I think it's important. Because some folks, you know, we don't get all the information that we can get. And you folks, we do these podcasts. It's about an hour long. You can get some news stories within an hour, and I think that's important. But we didn't do a podcast last week because I had a doctor's appointment that didn't turn out so good, and more to come on that. But and then my wife had emergency surgery, so I had to take care of that. And she's doing well, and if you keep her in your prayers, I appreciate it. But I do appreciate you folks listening to this podcast. We're going to end this sucker with a prayer, and then we'll come back next time. All right, if you're listening to this driving down the road, bow your heads. No, I'm just kidding. Don't pay attention to the road. Close one eye or something. I don't know. Whatever you do. Don't put your hands apart. 10 and 2, people. 10 and 2. But if you're anywhere else and you're just sitting around, just bow your head here. Gracious and merciful God, you said that it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. You said that you have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Without fail, you save those who turn to you. The path that my friend is walking is beset with difficulties and misery. Lord, have mercy on them and purify their heart. In your love, lift them out of this situation. In the name of Jesus, who is with us in our suffering, amen. All right, folks, this is Truman's Town Hall. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading.